It has taken 2 years for this DLC to be released, which is just insane. This was initially meant to be released like 2 weeks after this game initially released back in, of course, 2020. Now, update 2.7 is here. Depending where you live, it releases on the 29th of November, so it's either there yet or it isn't, depending when you're watching this video. But of course, it is the new DLC with Bucky Barns, aka Winter Soldier. Now, this DLC is incredibly important, and it's also another reason why it's a very big DLC, and it's simply because it will lead to the bigger picture of the game's future. Not so specifically the DLC itself, but simply because people actually dig through the files that come with new updates, and they then ultimately get a sniff of what else is in the code and data, and really just in store for the future of the game. Now, if you could leave a like on this video, it helps a lot, so I'd really appreciate it. But if you get to the end of a video and you say, hey, well, I didn't actually like this video, then feel free to turn your like into a dislike. But if you could drop a like right now, it would really help a ton. Now, the rumor is that this is the last time we fight MODOK, which is what we all basically want. However, there was a rumor that went around more recently that this is one of the last ever DLCs for the game because there are budget issues, which is also why She-Hulk was delayed. Now, She-Hulk is of course another DLC character that we know is confirmed. One of the bigger reasons why is because the voice actor actually confirmed it themselves. So yeah, there's that, but it's clear that that's also being delayed as well. Now, all of this information was according to news outlets reporting on a podcast that Miller was on, though since then he has more or less confirmed that, well, things may have been taken a little out of context and that people should have reached out to him to actually get a quote. Now, one thing is that it's no secret this game survives on selling skins, and well, you guessed it, Bucky comes with a whole bunch of them. Now, it is actually one of the DLCs that I'm super excited to play, more so because, well, yes, Bucky is ultimately a mix of Cap and Widow, but done correctly this time and not just a straight copy and paste. Now, there is a bunch of unique skill sets, but basically, in a nutshell, it's just how it should have been done for the previous DLC characters. Now, they have a new community manager who seems to be doing, well, debatably nothing. When the game was under fire back, of course, in its early days, Andy, who was the community manager at the time, and you have to give credit where it's due, was on the front line just engaging with the community and giving some sort of sense of guidance, whereas now, yeah, well, all we can hear is crickets, basically, which is weird because it's obviously intentionally being done as well, and I just don't get why. Now, the lack of engagement with the community is what seriously makes people feel that the game is done. Even though I'm personally so excited for the DLC, we can all agree that the way the footage and trailer were dropped was bad. Not the actual trailer and footage itself, but more so the order that it was released in. Had it have been done the other way around, it'd have been a complete different story because, of course, we actually saw this DLC actually looks really good, but the way it was released, it caused a lot of questions from fans, and well, we all really had the same comment, which was, oh, so it's basically just the same as the last time, and that's really where it went south. Now, as I said, it's really important, right, this DLC, because updates, they get released, the notes get released, and it gives us a sense of direction. Now, not all the time, but more times than often. So, thanks to what is found in the files themselves, we're going to be able to say, okay, is it really the end of the game? Or is there something else that's in store? And this is where we get to see things like voice notes, etc, etc. This is what we know as data mining, and some YouTubers go ahead and dig through it themselves, but our trustworthy source, or at least who should be your trustworthy source for this stuff, is without a doubt Miller. So assuming that he's actually able to find something, then great. But if there is that possibility that, well, there's nothing, then at the same time, I guess it is what it is. Now, at this stage and where the game stands, as I've said numerous amounts of times, if you have deleted the game, just go ahead and re-download it solely for this DLC because it's free and it's a ton of fun. That's exactly what I've done. This DLC isn't going to be a groundbreaking DLC that magically brings back tons and tons of people into the game, because that DLC would have been the Spider-Man DLC or the Black Panther DLC, which clearly was a DLC a lot of people were banking on that unfortunately on the grand scheme of things didn't really deliver. So in that perspective, it's just really got to that stage where if you play this game, you are just one of the people that still enjoy the game, and you're not expecting some sort of miracle to change where, you know, there's like a huge update that changes the entire framework of this game. That is not just going to happen. However, the good thing that this game has done is taught other studios a very big lesson, and it's very clear that there is a studio that, well, they saw that and they quickly turned things around. And that game, of course, is Gotham Knights, because that game's meant to be a single player story driven game, but if you take a look at the whole framework, it's not really at home, right, in terms of the whole leveling up system, etc, etc. However, if that was a live service game and you then see the progression and how you're meant to level up characters, etc, etc, well, I mean, you then just say, okay, that makes complete sense. It's meant to be a live service game, so the entire framework of this game is right at home. So it's clear to say that, you know, that studio literally saw the anticipation for Marvel's Avengers. They saw the amount of hype around it. They saw, I mean, just fans completely take a U-turn the second the game was released and how the game didn't deliver. So it was one of the most anticipated games, yet on the grand scheme of things, one of the games where people really took it for the first couple of weeks and even months, and then eventually said, okay, things are not changing. And I guess you have to say to yourself, okay, there are plenty of live service games out there, some successful and clearly some not so successful. And if you take a look at the overall picture, let's be honest, are there really a ton of games that are super successful? The short answer is no. And when it comes down to superhero games, whether that be Marvel superhero games or DC superhero games, this is the path you just don't want to go down. So, if any studio is taking notes, it's clearly Insomniac Games, which thankfully we don't have a live service game coming up, but I mean, for any other studio out there as well, do not mix superhero games with live service games, or frameworks if you will, because Marvel's Avengers could have been a lot bigger than it was. Gotham Knights clearly could have been a lot bigger than it was, but fans do have a say and they have spoken, so let's just really hopefully never see something like this again. But as I say, as a fan for Marvel's Avengers, I'm genuinely looking forward to this DLC. I am ready to just play as Bucky and really explore the new skill sets. However, am I going to level up the character and, you know, go to max power level? Well, no, like it's just not going to happen, because I know by doing that, it's going to take a ton of time, and with all the content already existing in the game, it's not going to be enjoyable. However, as I've said plenty of times before, if you really have, you know, stayed away from this game for a while, and you want to just start from absolute scratch with all the DLC characters, then it's a very enjoyable game, and I don't think anyone can actually really doubt that too much, because all the basic bugs and glitches, although there are still some that are very questionable, were more or less fixed. So really your experience will be a lot smoother than people back in 2020, but that's just, again, it is what it is. But leave your thoughts on this. Where do you think this game is heading? Is it really the final DLC, or is She-Hulk going to be the final DLC? Now, Spider-Man 2 had some very, very shocking news the other day, which you don't want to miss. You want to be kept in the loop on that, so check that video out that you see on screen right now.